Peter Rogoff and by Matt Griffin. Matt is the managing partner of the Pine Street Group. They are developing the convention center expansion. Now, here behind us, you can see the early stages of an essential King County public transportation project, the Rapid Ride H line. I say early stages because, unfortunately, the road isn't open. The buses aren't running. And that despite the fact that we broke ground nearly 9 months ago on this project just down the street. The site and many other public and private construction sites are quiet, unfinished, delayed. Critical infrastructure projects across the region are stalled because of recent disputes at several local concrete companies. Now, King County recognizes and respects the collective bargaining process, and we continue to urge the parties to return to the negotiating table because we know that table, with a highly qualified federal mediator, is where resolution will ultimately be found. Today, though, we cannot wait for resolution. These critical projects for transit, for the environment, they can't wait any longer. That's why King County is moving forward with our first ever release of a request for qualifications to secure a contract with one or more exclusive concrete suppliers. Now, within these contracts, successful applicants will need agreements in place that ensure our projects will not be delayed in the future by work stoppages or by employer lockouts. These contracts seek to ensure we'll have the materials we need to meet the county's construction needs, to get workers back on jobs, to avoid labor disputes. The criteria include pricing, experience, the ability to deliver, and also environmental sustainability. We know that concrete is a significant source of embedded carbon, and we want to make sure that as we are moving forward with these contracts, we are also helping the industry move towards a more sustainable future for our region and the world. As successful bidders will lock in a contract worth at least $30 million with the county over the next 3 years, with an opportunity to extend that contract for an additional 3 years. Securing new suppliers now ensures that over the next 6 years we can continue to build crucial projects like this Rapid Ride line. It means we can begin additional construction on key pieces of infrastructure like the massive Harborview expansion, Harborview Medical Center expansion that was approved by the voters, like electrifying Metro's South bus base to speed our conversion to an all-electric fleet, like building flood walls in South King County to deal with increased storms in the winters here due to climate change, to replacing fish-blocking culverts to help us restore our salmon runs, to improving wastewater facilities like West Point and road and bridge safety projects across the unincorporated area. All of these require a reliable supply and a significant supply of concrete. And I hope that today's RFQ announcement will remind the parties of the much bigger issues at play, that they will get back to the negotiating table immediately, and that they will settle this thing. And I look forward to awarding these future concrete contracts, providing economic security to workers and to the companies who treat their workers fairly, and ensuring our residents have greater certainty for on-time and on-budget delivery of important infrastructure projects. So now let me introduce to you the Mayor of the City of Seattle, Bruce Harrell, who will speak to some of the critical impacts on city projects. Mayor Harrell.
Thank you, King County Executive Dow Constantine, for showing the leadership that, well, I guess he's known for in these kinds of situations. So I'll be very brief to talk about how this affects the city of Seattle and the projects. For us, Of course, the most critical project is the West Seattle Bridge. That, all things considered, we certainly would have had that completed by mid-year 2022. Based on our subject matter experts at SDOT, we anticipate that if the current labor dispute is not settled in a few weeks, right around February 20th, that this will have a significant delay on the project. Each day of a non-resolution results in a day of an impact, so to speak, a negative impact. So we are hopeful that this resolution gets resolved, but of course we will do everything possible in the meantime to make sure that we're doing, whether it's epoxy crack injection and carbon fiber wrapping and some of the other activities that we can do now. We'll make sure we are doing the things we can do, but the reality is that this will have a negative impact on the West Seattle Bridge project if not settled soon. We also have a list of other projects, including the waterfront project, that this will have an adverse effect on. And so we are monitoring the labor dispute because we need to protect the interests of Seattle. And again, we welcome and support the efforts and the leadership that the King County Executive are showing in this respect. The fact is that what we are trying to do at the City of Seattle, that we promised our residents and employers and employees transparency and providing information on a real-time basis. And so every single day that a day goes by where we do not have this concrete resolution fixed will affect our major projects. And so I will not say more than that, again, the kind of leadership we're seeing coming out of the county right now is a great one method by which we hope to not find ourselves in this situation again. And if there are other questions about the specific Seattle projects that this may impact, I'll certainly address those questions later. I also want to say, as I introduce the next speaker, Peter Rogoff, that it's been my pleasure as an executive committee member on Sound Transit to work with Peter. Even prior to that, we'd worked on many projects together, and so I'm very pleased with his transparency and his expertise in situations like this. He's, as many of you know, is a national expert in not only light rail, but major capital projects. And so I will introduce Peter Rogoff, and certainly he'll say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. You just heard from two outstanding leaders in our region. You've also heard from one of the longest standing Sound Transit Board members and one of the absolutely newest Sound Transit Board members. And we are all working together to advance projects in our region. The challenge is that this strike has now gone on for more than 3 months. We're at 69 days and counting. And the scene you see behind me here, with a hole in the ground and forms already in place and rebar already in place, but construction workers who have been sent home without pay, that scene is being replicated right now, today, up in Linwood, out in Federal Way, down in Kent, out in Bellevue, and out in Redmond, in some of the largest capital projects this region has known, all of our Sound Transit expansion projects. They're not dead in the water, but they're slowing down. Whether it's our East Link extension, Linwood Link extension, Federal Way extension, Redmond extension, every one of these projects is set to be delivered in the next 2 years. But the delivery dates for those projects are becoming increasingly in question the longer this strike stretches on. Since the strike began, we've missed delivery of more than 26,000 cubic yards of concrete. That's equivalent to more than 2,600 truckloads. Or for perspective, imagine a line of concrete trucks, back to back, stretching more than 17 miles in length from Fremont all the way down to SeaTac. One of the most troubling aspects of this strike is the toll it's taking on the construction workforce. The lack of concrete means delays to associated work, and that means contractors have had to lay off, just on Sound Transit projects, more than 230 workers. Another 160 are at risk in the coming weeks if this strike isn't settled. Today's announcement by King County Executive Constantine is an important and positive move. The proposal that the county is putting forth is a potential tool for the public sector to come together and keep moving taxpayer projects forward. It can create a pathway to allow critical work to resume again on these projects. And I really want to thank Executive Constantine, Board Member Constantine, for stepping up and recognizing the urgency of this situation. At the same time, as we go forward with this RFQ and talk about how we're going to restart a supply of concrete to these public projects, the quicker way of dealing with this problem is to get parties back to the table and settling this strike now. It has to end. And we can't emphasize enough that the longer this stretches on, the longer the projects that the taxpayers have been funding can get delayed. So thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Matt Griffin, the managing partner of the Pine Street Group and the leading force behind one of the most important projects in the region, our new convention center in the city of Seattle. Mr. Griffin?
Thank you. So as the comments have been, I'm here as the managing partner of the project to build a convention center. And like the other public projects, we are basically close to being standing still on many items because of lack of concrete. In today's world, of course, this will mean that the convention center will open later. It will cost more money, and which that means there'll be less money to spend on tourist activities for downtown, as well as in basically renovating the existing convention center. So those are problems for this public project, like the other ones that have been mentioned. But I'd also want to talk more about what's going on with the workforce. On our project alone in one site, we've had to lay off 50 people, and we've got another 100 that we haven't called back to work. We haven't called into work because of basically held up on the project. And as we think about this, and I've been a member of a couple of construction unions. I've been a member of an owner in a contracting firm. I've been head of private projects and head of public projects. We can't forget the impact this is on our labor force. We have thousands of people out of work here in Seattle because of a certain group that are basically deciding that they can't resolve their issues. It's a major impact on families in this community. And there's a time when we try to crawl out of this pandemic and basically get funds in people's pockets so they can basically make the stores and other places lively again. These are hurting many other people. And I hope that basically the people involved in this strike will figure out a way to come back to the table, as is mentioned by others. And I'd even hope further that they can find out a way that they can find a way to keep the drivers moving the concrete during the time while they resolve this issue. It just has too big an impact on too many families in this community. So again, from my position at the convention center, my position as a member of the community, I ask that people come back to the table and hopefully can get concrete flowing during the time that they finish their negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, Peter, Mayor Harrell. I also have with us Ken Guy, who's the director of King County's Finance and Business Operations Division, who can answer your technical questions about the RFQ. So I just want to reiterate, and maybe by way of simplification, for our general contracts, if we contract with a company to build a project, we pay them well, and we ask that company to enter into an agreement with their workers and the labor organizations so that the company won't lock them out and the unions won't strike. And because of that, we're able to count on that company and those workers continuing to deliver every day on our construction projects. What we have not previously anticipated is that the suppliers with whom those companies have contracted do not have the same project labor agreements, as they're called, in place. And so this is, we're in uncharted territory here, I will tell you that, but this is our attempt to provide ourselves that same insurance, that same certainty that the supplies will keep flowing so those prime contractors can keep building and we can deliver our projects. And this is important for us for our public infrastructure, but it is equally important for the private sector where many projects have been slowed or stalled by this work stoppage. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. So I'll answer generally about this. This is a county RFQ, but we invite our public partners to piggyback on this should it be successful in securing the supplies that we want. We're all one team, and we're obviously working very closely together to make sure that we can get past this challenging time and be able to deliver all of the public's infrastructure on time and on budget. Mayor Held, did you want to add anything on the bridge?
No.
Okay.
I just want to say that's why we're supportive. That, well, yes is the short answer.
That's the answer we're looking for. Thank you. Others?
So, Mayor, are you saying unequivocally if there is not a deal by February 20th, that the Seattle Bridge will not open?
Yes. And in all seriousness, that we are doing everything humanly possible to avoid a delay. And that's what I mentioned. Our subject matter experts are looking at the lower bridge, for example. It doesn't require this level of concrete with our epoxy injections. Everything we're doing with our carbon fiber wrapping, we're doing everything possible to avoid this. But I needed to know as mayor what's sort of our drop dead date where this will actually affect us. And February 20th is a date that you could write about, because that's what I've been told. And so we're hopeful again that, you know, this strike becomes resolved. But then again, that's why I'm applauding the County Council and King County Executive Dow Constantine on this effort.
Yeah. So we've been in contact with several of the concrete companies in discussions with them. We've been in contact with the union, the Teamsters, and we have been in contact with the federal mediator, who, as I mentioned, is a very accomplished person who, if we get the parties in the room at a table and serious about settling this, will be able to really advance the conversation, I think. We've had some additional conversations with others that I'll leave aside for now, but I will let you know that we have attempted all of the strategies we've used in the past to try to cajole and reason with people. And I think it is important for us to recognize that we have some weaknesses in the system here that we're going to have to address over both the short and long term to ensure that we have the supply of concrete and other materials we need for our projects to continue. Remember, this region has something on the order of $100 billion of infrastructure projects in the pipeline over the course of the next several decades. So we cannot be going through these kinds of episodes repeatedly. We have to make sure that the materials are going to keep flowing and the workers are going to be able to stay on the job. Others?
What would you say to somebody who would look at this as meddling in union business and being anti-union?
Yeah. The question is this meddling in union business? I mean, it is more, at least as much, trying to encourage the companies to come to the table. I think that the major point here is that we can't tolerate the interruption in supply, and that if the companies and their workers return to the table, they will be able to find common ground rather than having folks be unwilling to talk. Now, I know that the union is willing to talk. In fact, I think they showed up today with a table and a negotiating team in the parking lot of one of the contractors waiting to talk. I saw. So they're ready to go to the table, but we have multiple companies involved here, and we need to get them in the room with the mediator, with the federal government, and make sure that we get all the issues out on the table and that we can get proposals that everyone can agree to.
Is there wiggle room in the budgets for these? We're already behind on these, but
I mean, some of them yes and some of them no. The fact is that every budget for an infrastructure project has some contingency built into it, and there are a lot of different contingencies. But every bit that's spent is money that can't go for something else, whether to cover some other unforeseen circumstance, or, as Matt said, to provide other improvements that are needed. So some of these are going to be getting into significant challenges if this goes on much longer. I'm asking the companies and the union, not merely as a matter of dollars and cents for them. And the amounts in dispute, as I have been given to understand, are not enormous here. But everybody's got their arms folded, and they're not getting to agreement. But really, as a matter of the public good, that they need to find a way to get to yes and to get us working again.
Is there a timeline for bringing in outside contractors and concrete? Is there, I know you're kicking that around, but is there a timeline?
You know, concrete's funny because it doesn't travel well, right? So for a lot of products, you could try to bring them in from outside the jurisdiction. That's not realistic here. Our focus is really, and these are the big companies with the capacity to deliver at the scale we need. So our focus here is on securing a supply for us over the next 3 and 6 years and getting everybody back to the table to get this dispute settled. I don't think they're that far apart, but they gotta get to the table and talk.
When's the last time they've been to the table?
It was 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? No, 3 weeks ago. It was a sort of perfunctory event. Didn't lead to a lot of breakthroughs. So need everybody to show up with a little more seriousness of purpose and a determination to get this thing settled.
Last question?
So, oh, go ahead.
Doesn't-
This is an unrelated question. We've got two business owners that want to ask you this question today. This is for an unrelated topic. First of all, the owner of Fallback Yankee Found in Chinatown International roadside line is really concerned about what's happening at 12th and Jackson. She says it's illegal activity. She wants to know why the city is allowing this to continue, and what is your plan to stop it? She's so frustrated. She's posted on Instagram. She says she's putting the city on blast.
She should be frustrated, number one. For the questions on 12th and Jackson, she should be frustrated because, again, I inherited months and months of illicit activity there, sex trafficking, the unlawful fencing of goods. Right now, we have a directive to the police department that are, in fact, the other day I mentioned the number of arrests that have been made, particularly in that area and others. And next week, next Tuesday, on the State of the City, I'll be much more specific on how we're going to go about that, what the specific plans are. Again, in the city of Seattle, there's not a simple button to push to make sure all of the illicit activity could be gone. However, what we're looking at are sustainable solutions. And so she will see here in a matter of weeks not only the plan, but an implementation of the plan, and these will be sustainable solutions, which simply means where there needs to be lawful arrests, there will be lawful arrests. Where there needs to be treatment for mental illness or drug abuse, there will be treatment providers there. So more to come here, and again, I will be more than happy to talk with this person offline about the specifics that she will see here in the very near future.
Mayor, any decisions on the
So-
eviction moratorium?
The decision I believe we'll make Friday. We're looking at a baseline. Let me say it a little clearer. The baseline policy in the eviction moratorium is that I do not want one person homeless because of a COVID-related financial hardship. That's the baseline. What we're trying to establish for the city of Seattle is to make sure that we have systems in place to help everyone. But we'll talk more about that next week. We're here to talk about the concrete strike today, so I appreciate the attention to these issues, and we'll talk offline about it if we can.
So again, if you have individual questions, this is Ken Guy. He's director of our finance and operations division. Michelle Allison from Metro Transit. Really appreciate everyone being here. This is an all-community effort. We've got to get this going again. This is critical for our economy and our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Yeah.